Now let's talk about how the Flash interface is set up. The main area where you work in Flash is called the stage. The stage is the big area in the middle of the screen. On my stage, I have a ball. Another important part of the Flash interface is called the toolbar. The toolbar is on the left side of the screen. The toolbar contains different tools for modifying and creating artwork in Flash. For example, the top tool, the selection tool, is used to select objects. So on the stage, I can click in the red area of the ball on the stage, and it's selected. I can tell that it's selected because there are white dots around it. Another important part of the Flash interface is something called the timeline. The timeline is at the top of the screen. The timeline shows an animation over a series of time and is divided up into frames and keyframes. Frames and keyframes show an animation at a particular point in time. The red box at the top of the timeline is something called the playhead. We'll talk more about the playhead later. But if I click and drag the playhead, so the timeline is the area where you can control and create animations. Another important thing you can do in the timeline is create something called layers. On the stage, you can see that this ball moves horizontally and vertically, but you can use layers to position objects behind or in front of other objects. Layers in Flash work in the same way that they do in Photoshop or in Illustrator. Another part of the Flash interface is something called the Property Inspector. The Property Inspector is at the bottom of the screen. The Property Inspector changes based on what you have selected. You can watch the Property Inspector change when I select the ball. The Property Inspector updates to show things that you can modify with whatever you have selected. For example, once you have a shape selected, you can modify its color in the Property Inspector. The area on the right side of the Flash interface holds something called panels. Panels are used to help you work with your content in Flash. Examples of what you can do with panels are modify colors, align objects, and organize groups of objects. We'll talk about all that later when we talk more about panels. But that's the basic idea of the Flash interface. Now that you understand how the Flash interface is set up, let's talk about the individual parts of the interface in a little more detail.